They stole my late husband's diamond ring and told me I was just confusing memories with fantasies. 3 days later, the jeweler called me, and nothing in my life was the same again. My name is Margaret Sullivan. I am 68 years old, and I thought I had already faced the sharpest kind of grief after losing my husband, Robert. But nothing prepared me for the day. The only piece of him I still kept, his diamond wedding ring, vanished from my nightstand. At first, they told me it was just age playing tricks on my memory. But 3 days later, the jeweler's phone rang, and I realized I hadn't simply lost a ring. I was about to uncover secrets that would shatter everything I believed about my family and force me to decide who I could truly trust. I used to think silence was my greatest companion. After Robert died, silence became my wallpaper, my bedding, the air I inhaled each morning. But silence lies. It pretends to comfort you while hiding the echo of a voice you'll never hear again. The one sound that could still tether me to him was the small click of his diamond ring resting back in its blue pouch, the very ring that had warmed his finger for more than 4 decades. It wasn't flashy. Robert hated extravagance. Just a quarter-carat diamond set into white gold, barely visible unless the light caught it right. But to me, it was worth more than every treasure locked behind glass in the fanciest boutiques of New York. That ring was our vow etched in metal. It carried sweat, celebrations, betrayals we overcame, laughter in the kitchen. It was our marriage distilled into a single object. The hospital had returned it to me in a small cloth bag the night he passed away. The bag also carried his wallet, his wristwatch, and the faintest scent of the cologne he had worn since his 40s. I placed the bag on my nightstand the way others place a rosary on their pillow. From that day forward, it never moved more than an arm's length from me. When grief is new, people swarm around you like bees. Some bring food, some bring prayers, others bring noise just to drown out your sobs. My daughter Victoria was my anchor during those days. Gentle, attentive, perhaps too attentive, fluffing my pillows, organizing casseroles, whispering promises that we would get through it together. My son David, on the other hand, came with bullet points, funeral logistics, bank signatures, doctor's bills. He had inherited Robert's pragmatism, but not his warmth. And then there was Samantha, David's wife. Her smile always felt one size too small for her teeth. Polished, controlled, forever judging. At the funeral, she whispered in my ear, "Margaret, you should start letting go of things. Objects only hold you down." I bit my lip and said nothing. People who mistake keepsakes for clutter cannot understand what it means to spend a lifetime with someone. 2 months later, a thin drizzle painted the Sunday sky. Victoria arrived with her husband and children, arms loaded with bags of snacks. David drove up with Samantha, who strutted inside balancing coffee cups like she owned the place. "We thought a family cleanup would help," Samantha announced, clapping her hands. "A fresh start." I should have locked the door. Instead, I swallowed my instinct and let them rummage through my home. The home I had built with Robert, brick by brick, memory by memory. They opened closets, labeled boxes, muttered about donations. I stayed in the kitchen, stirring coffee with exaggerated focus, but my ears sharpened. I heard Samantha's condescending tone as she pulled old notebooks from a shelf. "Honestly, David, why keep these? Sentimental clutter only traps the elderly." When I walked back to my bedroom to fetch the blue pouch, the air was wrong. The nightstand drawer gaped open. The pouch was still there, but empty. At first, I thought my hands were trembling too much to feel. I lifted it, shook it. "Hello, Victoria," I called. "David." Samantha appeared first, phone in hand, smile glued in place. "Margaret, everything all right?" "The ring," I whispered. "Robert's ring. It's gone." David appeared in the doorway. "Mother, relax. We moved a lot of things. It's probably in a box." "No," I said. "It was here. Always here." Samantha tilted her head, pity dripping like honey. "Sometimes memories blur. At your age." Her words sliced deeper than any theft. Victoria rushed in, eyes wet. "Where did you put it, David? You were in this room." He raised his hands. "Stop. Let's not dramatize. Mother misplaced it. We'll find it." I steadied myself against the dresser, rage drying my tears before they could fall. No one leaves this house until that ring is back in my hands. Samantha blinked in disbelief. Margaret, that's absurd. Absurd as rifling through a widow's drawers and making her heirloom disappear, I fired back. They searched. They lifted cushions, shook boxes, checked the carpet. Nothing. As the evening stretched, David gave his verdict with a sigh. I'll come back tomorrow. It probably slipped behind furniture. It didn't slip, I said. It was taken. Victoria tried to hug me, but I stiffened. I wouldn't collapse in front of them. That night, alone in my kitchen, I lined up coffee cups the way Robert used to before meetings. I remembered how he spun the ring around his finger whenever he was deep in thought. That tiny ritual carried decades of us. Now some hands, familiar hands, had stolen it. The next morning, I filed a police report. The officer nodded politely, typed words without conviction. My statement would gather dust like every other petty theft case. In desperation, I dialed the jeweler's number. Mr. Harrison had adjusted my wedding set years ago. He had known Robert by name. Mrs. Sullivan, he said, his voice slow with sorrow, I'm so sorry for your loss. Tell me what happened. My husband's ring is gone. If anyone tries to sell or polish it, you must tell me. He promised he would. 3 long days followed. Victoria visited every afternoon, apologizing for everyone else's coldness. David texted only twice. Did you check again? And any update from the police? Samantha posted a photo of scented candles with the caption, Decluttering is freedom. I wanted to smash the screen. On the 4th morning, the landline rang. My heart leapt. Calls rarely came these days. Mrs. Sullivan? Mr. Harrison's voice. Something happened. A young woman brought in a men's white gold band with a small diamond. Paul, my appraiser, noticed an inscription inside. What does it say? My mouth dried. MNR 1976. Promises never break. I closed my eyes. Robert's handwriting etched in metal. It was ours. It was him. I rushed to the shop, my legs shaky but determined. The jeweler placed the ring on a velvet tray. Even from across the counter, I recognized it. The tiny nick from when it hit the dining table edge in 1999, the faint wear along the band. I touched it, warm, familiar. Mr. Harrison leaned closer. The girl seemed nervous, hair tied up in a messy bun, backpack on her shoulder. She asked for an advance for polishing. I gave her $200, told her to come back in a week. Paul, the appraiser, brought out a magnifying lens. There's more, Mrs. Sullivan. See here, faint markings along the inside rim. Almost invisible. Under the bright lamp, letters and numbers glowed faintly. C34, box, green, 12, key, 0811. A code, Paul murmured. Looks like storage or safe deposit information. My pulse hammered. Green, 0811. Memories unlocked. Years ago, Robert had rented a small safe deposit box at a downtown bank. He mentioned keeping emergency papers. I never asked more. May I take the ring? I asked Mr. Harrison. Of course, he said, but made me sign a statement confirming it was mine. He also handed me a printed image from the store's security camera. The frame was grainy, but clear enough, the girl with the messy bun. She turned just enough for her profile to show. My stomach clenched. She was Samantha's niece, the one who had boasted last Christmas about selling art online to support her freedom. Victoria arrived that evening. When I showed her the inscription, the code, and the security photo, her eyes widened. David's wife must know. This can't be coincidence. No, I said firmly. But before confronting them, I must open that box. Tomorrow, I'm going to the bank. The bank had long modernized, but the smell of old bureaucracy still lingered in its marble floors. I asked for assistance from someone who looked seasoned. That's how I found Mrs. Collins, a middle-aged manager with patient eyes. I slid the code across her desk. She frowned. See, 34 is an old safe deposit wing, closed years ago. Green was its internal nickname. Box 12 still exists in our records, but access requires the original key and proper authorization. Authorization? I pressed. She checked her files, lips tightening. Box 12 was opened in 1980 by Robert Sullivan. In 2014, a co-holder was added. Who? My throat constricted. David Sullivan. The room tilted. My son's name, tied to a secret box my husband never told me about. Mrs. Collins lowered her voice. If you find the original key and provide your husband's death certificate, you could request access as surviving spouse. But tread carefully. If David knows, he may contest. I left the bank trembling. Outside, I called Victoria from a payphone, the old kind that still swallowed coins. The box is real. David's name is on it. What? She gasped. Don't tell anyone. Let me think. When I returned home, an envelope waited on my doorstep. My name written in block letters, Margaret. Inside was a photograph, a screenshot from social media stories. My living room last Sunday. Reflected in a mirror, the girl with the messy bun. Scribbled in ink, silence means consent. My hand shook. Moments later, David's car pulled up. He entered without knocking. His cologne struck first, sharp and woody. Mother, he said, voice strained, the bank called. You went there. I did. You can't open that box without me. I can. I have the death certificate. And I know about the key. His jaw clenched. Who told you about a key? You just did, I said. His silence was answer enough. There are documents in there that could hurt people, he muttered. Which people? You, Samantha. His eyes darkened. Don't push this, Mother. Let it go. Your father didn't raise me to let go of truth. He exhaled, sharp and impatient. If you try to open it alone, you'll regret it. He slammed the door as he left. That night, the phone rang again. A trembling female voice whispered, Mrs. Sullivan? I didn't mean for this to happen. They said I only had to take photos. Then they mentioned the ring. I left something for you. Main Street, newspaper stand, third drawer under the catalogs. It's about the box. And about Samantha. The line went dead. The next morning, I found an envelope hidden under old magazines at the stand. Inside was a photocopy of a legal document, addendum of co-holder, box 12C34, safe deposit. Signatures, Robert Sullivan, David Sullivan, witness Samantha Hayes. Attached was a sticky note. If you open it, protect yourself. Code 0811. That evening, searching through Robert's old drawer, I found it, a small cylindrical key, engraved faintly with 0811. My hands trembled as I held it. I was ready. I didn't sleep that night. The little brass key with 0811 engraved on it lay on my bedside table, catching the dim glow of the lamp. I stared at it for hours, my thoughts looping between dread and determination. Robert had left me more than memories. He had left me puzzles, riddles wrapped in codes, and the certainty that he had known something long before I did. But if he trusted me enough to find the key, then I had no choice but to use it. The next morning, I dressed in my best coat, the dark navy one with gold buttons Robert always said made me look like a woman who meant business. I tucked the key inside a small pouch I wore around my neck, close to my skin. Then I called the bank and asked for an appointment with Mrs. Collins, the manager who had helped me days earlier. She agreed to meet me at noon. I had barely hung up the phone when David appeared at my front door, uninvited as always. He didn't knock. He simply pushed the door open, a habit he'd adopted since he was a boy, but one that felt invasive now, almost hostile. Mother, he said, eyes darting around my living room like he was cataloging my belongings. We need to talk. About what? I asked, though I already knew. He closed the door behind him and lowered his voice. About the box. About the ring. About what you think you've discovered. I folded my arms. There's no what I think. There's what I know. And I know your name is on that box, alongside your father's. His jaw tightened. Dad trusted me. He knew you weren't equipped to handle complicated financial matters. The word stung like acid. Complicated financial matters? David, I managed this household for 43 years. I paid bills, balanced checkbooks, stretched every dollar when your father was between jobs. If anyone was equipped, it was me. He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. I'm trying to protect you, Mother. There are things in that box that could cause problems if mishandled. What kind of problems? He didn't answer right away. He looked at the framed photographs on the mantel. Robert with his fishing rod, Victoria with her children, David himself on graduation day. His eyes lingered on his own face longer than the rest. "Just let me take care of it," he said finally. "You don't need the stress. Hand me the key." I reached for my collar instinctively, fingers brushing against the pouch. "You're not getting the key, David." Something dark flickered across his eyes. He forced a smile, but his voice was sharp. "You're making a mistake. Don't say I didn't warn you." And then he left, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled on the wall. By noon, my nerves were strung tighter than violin strings. I arrived at the bank, clutching my purse like it held my last breath. Mrs. Collins greeted me warmly, though her eyes darted to the pouch around my neck, as if she already knew what was inside. "Do you have the key?" she asked gently. I nodded and placed it on her polished desk. The metal glinted under the fluorescent light, small but powerful. "Very well," she said. "We'll proceed to the vault. But Mrs. Sullivan," she paused, lowering her voice, "be prepared. Whatever your husband kept in there, it's been locked away for decades. And your son has legal ties to it." "I understand," I said, though my heart pounded. She led me through a long corridor, down a flight of stairs, and into a hushed chamber where the air smelled of dust and secrecy. Rows of deposit boxes lined the walls, each one a silent witness to hidden lives. "Box 12, Mrs. Collins murmured, guiding me to a small green-labeled drawer. My hand shook as I inserted the key. For a moment, it resisted, as if the past itself didn't want to be opened. Then, with a click, the lock turned. We slid the box out and carried it to a private room. Mrs. Collins set it on the table and stepped back. "Take your time," she said. "I'll give you privacy." When she left, I sat staring at the box as though it might leap open and reveal its secrets on its own. Finally, I lifted the lid. Inside was a thick stack of envelopes, bound together with a faded rubber band. Beneath them, a small leather ledger, its pages yellowed with age. And at the very bottom, a sealed letter with my name, Margaret, written in Robert's familiar script. My throat tightened. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Inside was a thick stack of envelopes and a sealed letter with my name, Margaret, in Robert's familiar script. My throat tightened. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. That night, I decided I needed more than courage. I needed counsel. By morning, I was at Cole and Hartwell. I didn't sleep the night before I met the lawyer. The ring box sat on my kitchen table like a small, squared heartbeat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Robert's hands, steady warm, slipping that band on my finger 50 years ago, whispering a joke that made me cry and laugh at the same time. I let myself cry again now. Sometimes grief needs a place to sit down. By morning, I'd chosen a blazer I hadn't worn since his memorial and pulled my hair back so it wouldn't tremble with me. I arrived at Cole and Hartwell, Elder Law and Trusts, 10 minutes early and found myself staring at the brass plaque until the door swung open and a woman with an iron bob and kind eyes said, "Margaret? I'm Avery Cole. Come in." Her office didn't try to impress me. It tried to relax me. Books, a bowl of peppermints, framed photos of her parents, a blanket folded neatly over a guest chair. "Would you like tea?" she asked. The tenderness of that question almost undid me. "I need protection," I said, before I could ruin the moment with tears. "From my own son." Avery didn't blink. She just nodded and clicked her pen. "Tell me everything." So I told her. The hospital collapse, the unanswered calls to David, the way Samantha's Instagram made my pain a lifestyle aesthetic, the missing ring, the jeweler's late-night voicemail that sounded like a thunderclap hiding in a teacup. I slid the phone toward her and let her play the message. "Mrs. Sullivan, it's Gideon Marks from Harbor Jewelers. Something's off. Whoever brought in your ring asked for a reset and a polish, but the diamond's inscription, it's been tampered with. Also, your husband had a note on file with us from 2006. He asked us to contact you if anyone other than you ever brought that ring in. Please call me. It's important." Avery paused the voicemail. "And when you return the call," he said he'd found micro-etching under the pavilion, barely there, but it matched part of a box number, he thought. "He wants to show me the stone under magnification." I inhaled. He also said the man who brought the ring in signed, as D. Cole. Avery's brow furrowed. Cole. I know, I said. It isn't your David, but it's a cruel coincidence. She scribbled, then looked up. 2 tracks, she said. First, we secure your autonomy. If David and Samantha are moving toward guardianship, or any petition alleging diminished capacity, we prepare before they file. Second, we protect the asset in whatever the ring reveals. The inscription sounds like a breadcrumb. Your husband may have planned for this. Robert planned for everything, I whispered. Except dying. Avery's eyes softened. I'm sorry. She outlined what could happen. A petition in probate court asserting I was incompetent. Ex parte temporary orders that could strip me of access to my own accounts. A guardian ad litem visiting with a clipboard and a fixed smile. We will not let them take your life away on paper, she said. But I need evidence. Texts, emails, voicemails, anything that shows intent to exploit, isolate, or defraud. And I need your doctor's letter attesting to your cognition. I slid a folder across the desk. I started a file. Inside were screenshots of Samantha's posts, time-stamped, copies of messages I'd sent David with 0 replies, hospital discharge papers with the time I collapsed and the time he never came. Avery sifted through. This is good, she said. Also, don't underestimate the jeweler's note. If your late husband left instructions there, it establishes his intent to protect you. She tapped her pen against the wood. One more thing, Margaret. I'm going to file a notice of representation and a prophylactic motion. If anyone tries to move assets or encumber property in your name, the bank must notify us. And a cease and desist regarding public defamation. Samantha's posts won't help them in a courtroom. I swallowed. What if they've already filed? Avery smiled without mirth. Then we'll enjoy surprising them. 3 days later, a courier slid papers under my door. Summons. Petition for temporary guardianship and conservatorship. Hearing set for Monday at 9 a.m. They hadn't even texted first. Avery called as soon as I scanned it to her. They moved fast, she said. We'll move faster. I'll meet you at the courthouse at 8. And Margaret? Yes. Where your pearls? Let them underestimate you. Sleepwalked past my house without knocking that weekend. I ironed my blouse like it could protect me. I cleaned the sink at 1 in the morning. I laid Robert's ring box on the counter and practiced not opening it. Sunday night, the phone buzzed. Gideon. I didn't want to leave this on a voicemail, he said. Voice hushed, like someone might be listening. I pulled the cameras. The man who signed D. Cole came in with a woman. Blonde, green coat, expensive bag. She did the talking. My ribs tightened around my heart. Samantha, I said. It wasn't a question. I can't be sure, he said carefully. But the woman's voice, when I asked for ID, she laughed and said, I can get you whatever proof you want once this diamond looks the way it should. Thing is, the diamond already looked perfect. He exhaled. We also found a heat signature under the girdle consistent with an attempt to laser away a micro-engraving. But the original inscription is still there, faint, under the pavilion. I think your husband had it etched where only careful magnification would find it. And it matches a safe deposit pattern I've seen. Bank branches sometimes encode the vault and box numbers in a specific format. Do you know which bank? Not yet. But I copied an image file. And he hesitated. I'm uncomfortable with how insistent the woman was about drilling the setting. It would have compromised the stone. I refused. They left without paying. But the guy signed the work order before the argument. We have a signature and footage. He climbed my throat. Can you testify? If you need me, yes. I'll bring the video and the work order. I thanked him. After we hung up, I allowed myself one long, furious whisper into the empty kitchen. It wasn't elegant. It was honest. Probate courtroom 2C was colder than a library at closing time. The judge, Honorable Elaine McCready, took the bench just after 9, eyes clear, hair pulled back like a woman who thought better with no strands in her way. The room smelled like polish and panic. Avery squeezed my hand. Across the aisle, David sat in a navy suit he hadn't called me to ask about. He'd always borrowed Robert's ties for important days. Today, he wore one that didn't belong to us. Samantha sat beside him in cream, as if innocence came in a color. Their attorney, A man with steel-framed glasses and a mouth that looked bored by birthdays stood. "Good morning, Your Honor." Trent Kessler for the petitioners, David Thompson and Samantha Thompson. He said their names like credentials. "We seek a temporary guardianship and conservatorship for Margaret Thompson due to recent cognitive decline, impulsive financial decisions, and susceptibility to undue influence." Avery stood. "Good morning, Your Honor." Avery Cole for Margaret Thompson, respondent. "We oppose. Ms. Thompson is fully competent, and this petition is a transparent attempt to seize control of her assets. We will show a pattern of social isolation engineered by the petitioners, neglect when care was required, and a recent attempt to alter the most sentimental asset Ms. Thompson owns." Judge McCready nodded. "Mr. Kessler, you may proceed." He called Samantha first. Of course he did. She was all polished sorrow as she took the stand. "We love Margaret," she began, voice trembling at the edges like a ribbon someone had frayed on purpose. "This isn't about money. It's about safety." Kessler paced in a small, choreographed rectangle. "Samantha, can you describe specific concerns you've had about your mother-in-law's cognition?" Samantha folded her hands. "She forgets appointments. She repeats stories. She once left the stove on." And she paused delicately. "She has been making erratic financial choices, randomly visiting a jeweler and accusing us of stealing." Avery rose. "Objection. Assumes facts not in evidence and mischaracterizes." "Sustained," the judge said. "Stick to what you personally observed." Samantha's lips thinned. "Margaret has become fixated on a piece of jewelry. She's convinced strangers are conspiring against her. In my professional opinion." Avery was up again. "Objection. She's not an expert." Sustained. Kessler recovered. "Have you observed any unsafe behavior?" "Yes," Samantha said, eyes shining. "She collapsed recently." "Alone?" "She didn't call us." Avery stayed seated. "No objection," she whispered to me. "Let them step into it." Kessler nodded gravely. "No further questions." Avery approached the stand with the kind of smile that looked like a closed umbrella. "Mrs. Thompson," she said to Samantha, her voice gentle, "you're aware Margaret collapsed from acute stress and dehydration." "I'm aware she collapsed," Samantha said. "And you're aware she called David 3 times that day with no response?" Samantha blinked. "I don't monitor my husband's phone." Avery tilted her head. "But you do monitor your Instagram." "Exhibit A, Your Honor." She handed a printout to the clerk, then to the judge. The screen-captured post showed Samantha in a white kitchen with a latte and a caption about protecting your peace from negative energy. Timestamp 20 minutes after my third unanswered call. "Mrs. Thompson," Avery said lightly. "Was Margaret the negative energy?" Samantha's face arranged itself into wounded dignity. "That's a violation of my privacy." Avery didn't blink. "Privacy is a two-way door, especially when you file public petitions." "No further questions." Kessler called David next. "My son raised his right hand and swore to tell the truth with the mouth that had once kissed my cheek on graduation days. He couldn't quite look at me." "David," Kessler said, "why did you file this petition?" David's voice was steady at first. "I'm worried. Mom's different since Dad died. She's suspicious. She misplaces things. She accused us of stealing a ring." "Did you steal her ring?" "No," a shadow slid across his features. "We would never." Avery rose. "David, when your mother collapsed, why didn't you answer her calls?" He swallowed. "I didn't see them." "So you didn't see 3 calls and a voicemail?" "I was in a meeting." "Of what length?" "The combined attempt spanned 50 minutes." He flinched. I can't recall." Avery nodded, as if that were a reasonable answer and not a dagger poorly sheathed. "Do you have a key to your mother's house?" "Yes." "Did you ever enter without her consent?" "No." Avery gestured to the bailiff, who wheeled in a television like an artifact. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, we'd like to play a security camera clip from Harbor Jewelers." Kessler bristled. "Relevance." Avery didn't look at him. "The jeweler is here to authenticate. It goes to motive and credibility." "Overruled," Judge McCready said. "Let's see it." The screen lit with grainy footage. Gideon's counter, a man in a baseball cap signing a form, a woman in a green coat standing slightly turned, enough for the camera to catch her profile. Even in muted pixels, Samantha's smile was unmistakable. Gideon's voice, off camera but recorded, asked, "Name for the work order?" The man replied, "D. Cole." Then the woman's laugh, bright as a blade. "Just make it look the way it should." Avery froze the frame and addressed the court. "Your Honor, Miss Thompson accuses my client of paranoia. In fact, the petitioners, or their agents, brought Margaret's ring to this jeweler and attempted to alter the diamond. The jeweler refused. We have the signed work order and the original customer message Robert Thompson left in 2006. Contact my wife if anyone other than her brings in the ring." Silence grew roots in the room. Kessler stood. "Objection. There's no proof my clients are the individuals in the video." Avery turned to the clerk. "We call Mr. Gideon Marks." Gideon took the stand in a gray suit that made his hands look honest. He authenticated the footage and the work order and described the faint micro-etching under the pavilion of the diamond, barely survivable notes of a number. 3 digits, a dash, then 4 more. Then 2 letters he believed indexed, a branch. "A safe deposit signature," he said. "I've seen that format a handful of times. People hide romance and routing numbers in the strangest places." "Did the woman seem familiar when she walked into your store?" Avery asked. "Yes," Gideon said. "I'd seen her face online. Mrs. Samantha Thompson is active socially." Kessler pounced. "Speculation. He's guessing from Instagram." Avery nodded. "We'll let the court decide how many green coats one woman owns." She turned to David. "Mr. Thompson, if you didn't take your mother's ring, why is there footage of your wife attempting to alter it?" David's jaw clenched. "That's not Samantha." Avery smiled. "Then you won't mind stipulating to a comparison between this footage and your wife's driver's license photo." Kessler hissed, "We're not doing roadside parlor tricks." Judge McCready raised a hand. "Counselors, we'll review the exhibits." "Continue." Avery called my physician next. Dr. Patel spoke clinically and kindly about my cognition, about normal grief versus pathological decline. He read from his own notes. "Ms. Thompson is oriented, articulate, and demonstrates intact executive function. No evidence of dementia or significant cognitive disorder." I watched the words ripple through David's posture. He shifted, as if a weight he'd expected to set down had turned out to be a mirror. The judge turned to Kessler. "Anything else?" He stood. "We request a brief recess, Your Honor." 10 minutes, Judge McCready said, rapping the gavel. In the hallway, the air felt warmer. Avery whispered, "This is going well. Don't let their faces spook you." Samantha had that high-gloss calm that always felt like a brand. David stared at the far wall. I wanted to touch his sleeve the way I did when he was 10 and thought he'd ruin Christmas by knocking over the tree. I kept my hands at my sides. The bailiff called us back. Judge McCready adjusted her glasses. "This isn't a full trial. It's an emergency petition. I've heard enough to decide on a temporary basis." Kessler straightened. First, the judge said, "I find insufficient evidence of incapacity at this time. The medical testimony is clear, and the respondent's presentation today is coherent and credible. Second, I am deeply concerned about the allegations surrounding the ring. If corroborated, they suggest potential exploitation, not protection." Samantha's jaw tightened. "Therefore," the judge continued, "the petition for temporary guardianship is denied. However, to preserve the status quo and protect all parties, I'm issuing an order prohibiting the sale, alteration, or transfer of any property belonging to Margaret Thompson, including the ring and any safe deposit boxes in her name, until this court has reviewed the circumstances. Additionally, no one may enter Miss Thompson's home without her written consent." Avery squeezed my fingers. I exhaled for the first time all morning. Finally, Judge McCready said, "Ms. Cole, if you intend to pursue any claims of undue influence or conversion regarding the ring, consolidate them here. I'll hear it. Mr. Kessler, advise your clients that social media is not a courtroom, and implications crafted for followers can look very different under oath." The gavel fell. We stood. Samantha moved fast, shoulder grazing mine. "Congratulations," she murmured. "You want to pause? Pauses end." I didn't look at her. "Some pauses are resets," I said. "That's what scares you." David started to speak. Mom. And then stopped. The sentence fell between us like a coin neither of us bent to pick up. We didn't go home. Avery took me straight to the bank. Which one? I asked. She smiled. The one I think Robert used. I stared. How would you know that? Because this isn't my first rodeo with husbands who loved their wives and didn't trust their children, she said softly. He left a trail where only a spouse would look. We walked into Harbor Federal, walnut counters, floors that remembered every shoe, and Avery asked for the vault manager. A man with a tie and a color named after a fruit introduced himself as Luis Morales and did not try to sell us anything. Mr. Morales, Avery said, my client's late husband had a safe deposit box here. We believe there are directives relevant to her protection. We also have reason to believe someone tried to locate the box by altering a diamond engraving that contains part of the box number. Mr. Morales didn't look surprised. Mr. Thompson was particular, he said. He left standing instructions to be notified if anyone attempted to access the box without Mrs. Thompson or his attorney present. He also left a sealed envelope to be delivered to Mrs. Thompson only if an ID mismatch alert ever fired. Avery's eyes flicked to mine. Has an alert fired? Mr. Morales glanced at his screen. Last week, he said. A woman called asking general questions about vault hours, then asked if any box numbers started with. He read off 3 numbers that matched what Gideon had teased from the micro-etching. We flagged it as suspicious because she then asked about branch identifiers. Samantha, I said. The name tasted like tin. Mr. Morales nodded to a vault guard. We'll need your key, Mrs. Thompson. I reached into the ring box and pulled out the tiny double-toothed key Robert had hidden in velvet. God, of course he did. My hands shook as I slid it across the counter. The vault was colder than the courtroom. When the guard and Mr. Morales aligned their keys with mine, the lock made a sound like a door in an old movie. The drawer slid forward with the weight of a small decision. Inside was a fireproof envelope marked in Robert's handwriting. Margaret. Open only if you're standing up. I laughed then, a small, broken, beautiful sound that made Mr. Morales look away so as not to intrude. Avery touched my elbow. I'm right here, she said. I opened the envelope. There was a letter, a flash drive, and a photocopy of something that looked like an amended trust instrument. The letter smelled faintly of cedar, like the box where Robert kept his cufflinks. My Maggie, it began. If you're reading this, you already did the hard thing. You walked into a room that wanted to take your voice and used it anyway. I love you for that. I could barely breathe. Avery touched the page. Read the middle, she whispered, as if she knew Robert personally, and he liked it when people didn't rush. There are 3 things you need to know. 1. The diamond in your ring has a micro-engraving under the pavilion, not visible to the naked eye. The numbers encode this vault, this drawer, and your initials. I had Gideon mark it after the Mitchell acquisition, when I realized our son had started to value money for what it bought him instead of what it could make him build. 2. The flash drive contains a video recorded with my attorney present. It's a codicil to my will and a restatement of our marital trust. It triggers only if you're ever challenged, mistreated, or isolated after my death. 3. The amended trust document includes what my lawyer called a dignity clause. If David or any beneficiary acts to undermine your autonomy or well-being, their beneficial interest is suspended and my heart thundered. Robert had reached forward through time and put his palm against my back. Do not be afraid of courtrooms, the letter continued. People lunge for power when they're scared. Remind them that love is not a ledger. If you're standing there now, then love one once already. It will again. I pressed the paper to my chest. Avery skimmed the trust instrument and whistled under her breath. He was thorough, she said. This is enforceable. The video makes it bulletproof. Mr. Morales nodded to the flash drive. We can view it in our conference room. Avery shook her head. Let's take it to my office. Chain of custody. We'll copy it and file it under seal with the court as necessary. We left the bank with a dragon at our heels and a saint in our purse. The courtroom was silent as James Harrison, my attorney, lifted the sealed envelope Robert had left with his estate lawyer, Harold Klein. My breath snagged in my chest when I saw Robert's handwriting. firm even on yellowed paper. "Your Honor," James said, "we ask permission to read into the record." Judge McCready gave a curt nod. The room held its breath as James unfolded the letter, smoothing it gently as though the paper itself carried weight beyond measure. "My Maggie," he began, his voice steady, "if this letter is opened, it means I failed you in one way. I did not say enough while I was alive about the most important thing, my intent. Everything we built belongs to you. Not in the shadowed way of shell companies or hidden rooms, but because that is what I wanted deliberately and documented where it matters. We kept our privacy because I asked you to, because I had tangled things and privacy was my knife. It was never a game against you. The day I sold Mitchell Holdings through the structure James and I created, I made 3 other choices. I named you the sole ultimate beneficiary of every entity. I retained no reversionary interest for our son, and I directed James to bury my name to protect your peace. If anyone now argues you hold what should have been theirs, show them this. I signed documents so there would be no doubt later, because doubt is a thief that arrives before thieves do. If you are reading this because someone you welcomed into your home decided your silence was an invitation to take, understand this. I saw the shape of it forming. I prayed it would soften. If it has not, then hear me clearly. Protect yourself. Tell David I love him. And that love means letting him learn which voices are wind and which are roots. Tell anyone who tries to use my mistakes to pry you open that I did not leave a single door for them. Do not let anyone dress greed as stewardship in my name. Yours, as long as time is measured, Robert. The words hung in the courtroom like bells still ringing after the tower falls quiet. My tears blurred the wood grain of the bench before me, but I sat tall. For the first time in months, grief and strength wrapped around me in the same breath. Samantha's face, normally a porcelain mask, flickered. She shifted in her seat, her polished poise cracking under the sound of Robert's voice from beyond the grave. David's eyes dropped to his lap, shame carving lines into his face deeper than age ever had. Judge McCready leaned forward, her expression carved from granite. The authenticity of this letter is corroborated by Counsel Klein's testimony and accompanying instruments. The intent is clear. The law respects intent documented with this degree of care. Ms. Mitchell, your petition collapses under its own weight. The gavel struck once, sharp as thunder. Petition denied. Protective order granted. Respondent is awarded costs and fees. Any further attempts to challenge Margaret Thompson's autonomy or ownership will be sanctioned. Gasps whispered through the gallery. Samantha's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, silence wrapped around her instead of me. When court adjourned, people shuffled toward the exits, their murmurs buzzing like bees escaping a jar. Samantha stalked past me, her perfume cloying, her eyes venomous. She bent close enough for her whisper to scrape my ear. This isn't finished. I looked at her squarely. It is for me. Her eyes widened, not at my words, but at my calm. She turned away, dragging David behind her, heels clattering like brittle bones against marble. Outside the courthouse, the winter air sliced my cheeks. Reporters loitered near the steps, snapping photographs, but their cameras were irrelevant. The only picture that mattered was the one Robert had painted in his letter, me, standing. Victoria wrapped her arm around mine, her grip strong. "Mom, you did it. You really did it." "No," I said softly. Robert did. He gave me the tools. I just chose to use them. David lingered near the edge of the crowd, looking younger than I had seen him in years. He approached cautiously, as though I were glass that might shatter. "Mom," he said, his voice barely audible. I didn't know about the letter. I didn't know he left that." "I didn't either," I said. He rubbed his hands together, his eyes red. "I filed the divorce papers," he blurted out. "From Samantha. I couldn't live like that anymore. I don't know who I am without her, but I know who I became with her. And I hated that man." The words were a wound and a bomb at once. "Then choose differently," I said. For the first time, he met my gaze without flinching. For the first time, I believed he might try. Weeks passed. Sanctions were imposed on Samantha and her attorney for their baseless petition. The regulators closed their inquiries. The insurance claim evaporated under Detective Pike's scrutiny. Samantha's social media presence dwindled to nothing more than a shadow of curated smiles no longer believed. Victoria visited often, her children filling my house with noise that no longer felt invasive, but healing. David came on Sundays, bearing grocery bags and awkward apologies, not in words, but in actions, fixing the loose railing, replacing a light bulb, washing the dishes without being asked. One morning, I stood at the window and watched him clear snow from my driveway, his back bent, his breath puffing in clouds. It was not redemption yet, but it was a beginning. In February, I took the train to the coast on what would have been Robert's birthday. I carried the letter in my coat pocket, its folds softened by my fingers. I sat on a bench overlooking the water, reading his words aloud. The waves answered with their own steady rhythm, each crest like a vow that could not be broken. An elderly couple walked by, their hands clasped, their laughter thin but bright. A young mother chased her toddler through the sand. A stray dog sat by my feet, offering company with no demands. Life swirled around me, not perfect, not painless, but present. For the first time since Robert's death, I felt not just his absence, but his gift. The strength to stand, the right to protect my dignity, the freedom to choose peace over silence. And I knew this was never a story about money. It was a story about intent, about how love can echo beyond death to defend the living. It was a story about learning that silence is not safety, but speaking is. When I returned home, I hung a small frame by the door that read, "Leave shoes and shame here." It made me smile every time I crossed the threshold. David noticed it on his next visit. He stared at it for a long moment, then nodded. "I think Dad would have liked that." "Yes," I said. "I think he would have." Now, when the house creaks at night, it no longer sounds like loneliness. It sounds like history settling into its place, making room for tomorrow. And to you, who have listened to my story all the way here, if you have ever been told you are weak, invisible, or incapable, remember this. You are not defined by their greed or their silence. You are defined by the choices you make to stand, even when standing feels impossible. If my story steadied your spine or softened your fear, then let it also be an invitation. Subscribe to Her Hidden Stories for more tales of courage, justice, and resilience. Stories where women our age are not sidelined, but become the authors of their own endings. And please, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us the battles you've faced, the victories you've claimed, the truths you've spoken when others tried to silence you. Your voice matters here. Together, we make sure no one's dignity is buried beneath someone else's greed. We are not finished, not by a long, bright mile,